Group B has Ecuador, Jamaica, Venezuela, and Mexico, baby. Mexico in this group. Where the hell do we start with this group? Where do we start?
I'm going to let you control this group because it has your beloved Mexico. I'm going to let you do whatever you want here.
Let's get the Mexico talk out the way.
Let's
get it out the way. Mexico arrives into this tournament coached by Jimmy Lozano, ranked number 14 in the world rankings.
Crazy. This
fucking team, man. This fucking team. Every time I watch them play, I have the same thoughts going in my head. I have the same reactions. It's become a routine. It's become a pattern. Actually, I wrote something down here. Got a little paper here that I need to show y'all.
Yeah.
Give me my pocket. Because every time I watch this Mexico team, bro, I think so many different things. For example, watching Mexico play feels like, that's the title. That's what I wrote down here.
Okay.
Watching Mexico play feels like watching your sister make out with a complete and utter loser and then paying that loser $150 for letting you watch. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying, bro? It feels like going to a Peso Pluma concert and being deaf. And I don't want to be insensitive to the deaf community. So I'll make a joke about people who can hear.
Okay.
It's like hearing the amazing Interstellar piano song build up and then never hearing the climax. Imagine that, brother. It feels like grabbing a cold, fresh Coke on a warm Sunday and having it be flatter than Stanley. That's a book that I read growing up. A flat soda is the worst thing in the world. It feels like getting invited to go eat tacos and going to Taco Bell instead. Now, I love Taco Bell, but it's the excitement, the hope of, homemade tacos. That's the part that gets you, and that's the hope. It's the hope that gets you. It feels like when you decide to get gas the morning after, instead of going directly after work, so you wake up and forget you have to get gas and then remember while you're rushing on your way to work the next morning. Jeez, that's what this shit feels like, bro. It feels like being a Drake fan after Not Like Us got released by Kendrick Lamar. It feels like having to pick between Joe Biden and Trump to be your president. Let's get political with it. It feels like being a Barca fan post Messi. Watching Mexico play.
No, that's good.
Watching Mexico play feels like eating a meal without YouTube. No entertainment. All you hear is yourself crunching, bro. That's one of the worst feelings in the world. Does that put it in perspective, brother?
Does
that put it in perspective?
Actually, to a team, bro.
That's what this team feels like, bro. I'm fed up watching this team. The other day when they lost to Uruguay, we were just hanging out casually watching the game, and I looked over to the TV and I accepted that Mexico was down 4-0, like I accept that a fucking new episode of Game of Thrones is on, Like I just accept these things now. I don't even question it. I don't even get surprised at the fact that they're down that bad, bro.
Good. No, that's good, though.
That's the frustrating part, man. That's the fuck you, man.
That's good.
Fuck you.
I'm glad you're at the acceptance stage. That's important.
You're right, though. You're right. Yeah. That's the stage that I feel like me and a lot of other Mexico fans have reached, because the DMs I got after that game specifically was a lot of Mexicans filled with this air of acceptance. We're just this bad. Uruguay is better, bro. This is what we've been seeing for the past 4 years type attitude. And that's different because usually, well, almost every time, I've always found a way to have some sort of optimism about the national team, whether it comes to Nations League finals, whether it comes to getting out of the World Cup group in 2022, any tournament. I've always found a reason for why Mexico can make it out, and I've convinced myself of that. But this might be the first tournament where that doesn't happen, bro.
Yeah.
This might be the first time in our podcast history where I don't have Mexico getting out of the group. And that's a really depressing feeling, bro. It's not a good feeling whatsoever, but it is where I'm at. And it's where I feel like a lot of other Mexican fans are at as well. This team has guys like Cesar Montes, Israel Reyes, Luis Chavez, Pineda, Orbelín Pineda, Edson Álvarez, Julián Quiñones, Santi Jimenez, and most notably, Malagón. He's going to be out, got injured, so Acevedo will be getting the start in this entire tournament. Look, man, I'll just give it to you straight. This is what I think would be the best starting 11. I'm going to just say this now.
Okay.
If Mexico wants any chance of getting out of the group stage, I'm not saying this wins them the tournament.
Right.
I'm not saying this wins them any sort of matchup in the knockout stages. I'm just saying you want to get out of the group. Reynoso's got the keys.
Okay.
If Jimmy Lozano watches the podcast, I hope that he just copy and paste this format, because this is the team to get us out of the group. Acevedo at back, Montes and Vasquez as our center backs, Arteaga on the left, Israel Reyes on the right. I want him on the right. Luis Chavez on the left, Alvarez in the middle, and then I'm going to go Chiquito Sanchez as the pairing midfielder there. And up top, give me Julián Quiñones, Santi Jimenez, and Roberto Alvarado from Chivas. That's the formula. That's the formula right there if you want to do it. If not, suit yourself. I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. Do whatever you like, Jimmy. I don't care about this shit anymore. Do what you like, but I'm just telling you, that will give us the best. This lineup will give us the best blend of talent, quality, chemistry that we can offer. And I'm not saying that's enough to do any damage. I'm just saying that's the best we can do. And so that's ultimately where I'm at with this Mexican team. You know how watching them play makes me feel now. And I think I don't have them getting out of this group, bro.
Yeah, I don't either. It is shocking to say that, considering that prior to the 2022 FIFA World Cup, every other tournament before that, the question of Mexico was, how far can we go? Was it quarters? Was it semis? Could we actually make a semifinal appearance in a Copa America or even a World Cup? Could we get to that quarters? It was a genuine feeling. It was a genuine expectation and belief that we thought Mexico
could win it,
could go there.
We could win it.
Exactly. So it's crazy that now there's an acceptance of Mexico just isn't good anymore. But that is the reality. And I'm glad that you got those DMs that are just like, okay, yeah, Uruguay 4-0 sadly does make sense now, because when you look at the quality and the issues that Mexico have, it's not the issues is not tactical. It's not a coaching staff problem. It's not an ego problem. It's not even economic anymore. It really is just the simple fact that Mexico doesn't have the quality anymore. That's it. And so if you're Mexico, you have to approach this tournament just like Peru. You have to have zero expectation. You have to completely redefine yourself, because over the last, I think, 3-4 years, Mexico and the Mexican people, and I think the players and the supporters, have clung on to the fact that, okay, we still might be good, right? But now that we know Mexico's not, let's redefine ourselves, right? Mexico, maybe they get real gritty in this tournament, right? Maybe they take a very physical approach, which I would actually like, because I think Liga MX players have gotten a little soft over the last couple of years.
Sure.
I think they need to get a little bit more physical. Obviously, there's new players like Israel Reyes, Julian Quiñones. Can they just come onto the fray and have a really good tournament, have a really good showing for themselves? Because this is a big opportunity for players like this, especially Quiñones, who is a naturalized Mexican, never got to play for Colombia, but he gets to play in a Copa America. Like, this is a really emotional narrative for players like Quiñones. So tap into that, because unfortunately, there's just not much else to tap into, to be completely honest. I think the two standouts are Edson Alvarez, obviously. He is a top player. Reads the game incredibly well. Very good from a defensive mid position.
But where would we be at if we didn't have Edson?
That would be a scary thought. That's what I've been
asking myself lately.
Yeah.
Like that Honduras game where he got the game tying goal in the last minute. Like, I think that represents his impact. He's obviously the best Mexican that we have right now in terms of translating his game at the club level over to the international level. Because Santi's been killing it, but he hasn't been able to do that at the international level. Where would we be without Edson Alvarez right now? I think we'd be even lower, bro. Even lower.
And that's the thing is, I think it sounds crazy when you say it like this, but it is true. Obviously, in Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions League, it's been pretty back and forth now between the MLS and Liga MX. So basically, when you look at the squad that Mexico are bringing, bro, they're bringing an MLS quality side to the tournament. That's it. And that can't cut it. It's why Mexico can't touch the USA anymore, because they don't have players that play at the highest level outside of Alvarez. That's it. You already mentioned Jimenez. He has had an amazing season in the Eredivisie, but he has an incredible supporting cast around him. When you look at what he has at Mexico, it's just not even close to the same thing.
Yeah.
So for Jimenez, he has to work twice as hard to have the same impact with a Mexican jersey. So it just doesn't look good when you look at Mexico, and I don't have them getting out of this group. But all I do hope is that the players just try to approach this tournament with a clean slate. Clean slate. The golden generation's gone. You know you're not good anymore, so just fight. Show something. Show some sort of passion. Do everything you can to leave your heart, blood, sweat, and tears out on that pitch, and I'll be happy.
Here are the positives, because this is what they're calling the group of life, is that there's Jamaica, Venezuela, and Ecuador in this group. Mexico has Jamaica's number. They've had it for a while now. Even during our worst phase, we still are able to get results against Jamaica. So if you chalk that up as a victory, that's really positive right there. The question is, how good is Venezuela? How good is Venezuela?
It's a question.
Because they're the team that I think is the biggest threat to overtaking Mexico in this group. And if Mexico ends up getting grouped, it'll be at Venezuela's expense. Venezuela getting that second place spot. That's the biggest question, because if they're at the same level as Mexico, then Mexico having that home field advantage, I think, might play enough of a factor to where they do end up getting out of this group that is overall pretty weak. Because even looking at the top team, Ecuador, which we will talk about in a second, it's not Argentina, it's not Brazil, it's not the USA, it's not Colombia, it's Ecuador, which is still, I'd say, top 5, probably number 5 in the Americas right now, but not like this gargantuan side in Copa America. So that's the biggest positive I can give to Mexico's side. It has everything to do beyond them. It's just the fact that the group isn't that threatening, and that there is a chance to get out of it if they start playing really good football right off the bat.
Yeah, actually, great point. So, yeah, I don't have Mexico finishing bottom in this group. And you're right. If they can just take advantage of maybe certain uncertainties in these other opponents, Mexico might be able to get that second place spot. I'm not completely shutting them out. I'm just saying ultimately I do have Mexico finishing in 3rd place.
I think it's interesting that they do play Jamaica first. And if that can be the game they get a victory against, you get that momentum to go. Crowd is there for the second game. Maybe something positive happens here. So maybe I'm starting to flip, bro. Maybe I'm starting to flip. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
man.
hey.
Maybe. But I'd be happy to see this team make it out of the group just for the sake of not getting grouped. Because if they get grouped, bro, the media is going to be even crazier, bro. It's going to be crazy, bro. It's one thing to get grouped in the World Cup. To get grouped in a 16-team tournament consisting of the best teams in the Americas and Mexico not being part of that final 8 in the USA, that would be ridiculous, man. It'd be ridiculous. So that's what it's looking like right now for Mexico. And tonight, they're slated to play against Brazil. And I pray to God that he shows mercy.
What do you think? What were your genuine thoughts when no Ochoa, no Henry Martin, no Chucky Lozano? Well, what did you think about that?
I think Chucky should have been called up. I think the rest were rightfully left off.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of positive from Jimmy Lozano. I still find it kind of interesting that Luis Romo still gets a call up. Like, he didn't fully commit to this idea of getting rid of the old guard. He just kind of got rid of a few guys. And I wish he had done the full commitment to it, just getting young guys, and he didn't do that. And the young guys he got, I thought, were also kind of questionable, and it showed in the Uruguay match, because that's who basically played, was most of our younger players, a lot of Chivas guys, and we just got murdered. We got murdered. So I guess it's a step in the right direction. I just wish he would just do it fully, do it outright, instead of like half and half.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you're bringing, Antuna, Santi Jimenez, and Edson Alvarez, you should bring Chucky. Even if he isn't the best option on the left wing, he could come off the bench. And what is your goal here if you're not bringing Lozano?
That one's interesting.
It just doesn't make sense, because are you using it as a scapegoat to be like, oh, we're not bringing our best players to this tournament, so if we get grouped, we're okay. Like, what is this? I don't fully understand it. I don't think Lozano should start. I would start Quiñones, but Lozano should still be here.
Folks, let me know. Mexico fans, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about this team? What do you think about the results? Are you with me? Are you a little bit more positive, more optimistic, or are you as pessimistic as I am right now? Let's talk about the rest of the group. We have 2 more CONMEBOL sides in Venezuela and Ecuador, and 1 more CONCACAF side in Jamaica. Let's close out the CONCACAF discussion here. Jamaica, coached by Hallgrimsson, ranked number 55, defeated Canada to qualify into this tournament, which was actually a really notable result, because I believe that Canada was a favorite going into that matchup, but Jamaica ended up coming out on top. And then I was in person to watch them get an impressive victory over Panama in the 3rd place game of the Nations League just recently, where Limbikisa scored an absolute banger from outside the box. It's a beautiful game. And ultimately, Jamaica was able to neutralize what was a really exciting and fast Panamanian team going into that match. So credit to them for getting the bronze medal in the Nations League, ultimately, with guys like Andre Blake, Hector, Damian Lowe, Bobby Reed, Damari Gray, Daniel Johnson, Mikel Antonio. There's talent on the Jamaican side. And my question is, at some point, does that talent give? Or does this tournament solidify that this generation ultimately was good on paper, but just trash in major tournaments?
No, honestly, that's kind of what that's kind of how I'm approaching this tournament, because I still don't know how I feel about Jamaica. I just don't know. One thing I will say, and it has impressed me, this is the most consistent I've seen Jamaica. Ever since Hallgrimsson came on to the Jamaican project. He has brought a really nice balance and consistency to this side. You already mentioned those two performances against Canada and Panama and the USA, right? They almost pulled it off, a victory against the USA. Those performances, which just happened, really proved to me that Jamaica have a very specific way of playing now. They used to be so hot and cold. Like, they would go to the Gold Cup final and then have the worst World Cup qualifying cycle. But now, the way that they're playing, they're pretty much playing the same way every single time. And honestly, it's a pretty boring style of football, not gonna lie. They're probably my least favorite team to watch. My God, is it laborious to watch Jamaica play, but it is working. Right? They do have talent in this side, and the talent that they do lack, they make up for it by being very physical. And I'll be curious to see how it pairs up against South American talent. And good ones at that in Venezuela and Ecuador. And Mexico has always been a challenge for Jamaica. They've never been able to crack Mexico. I'm wondering if Jamaica are building on something, right? They've shown that they low-key might be. So this would be the perfect opportunity for Jamaica to really test how much they've learned with Hallgrimsson over the last 2 years. This is the perfect test for them, because this is not going to be easy, bro. Mexico, Ecuador, Venezuela, these are tough opponents for Jamaica. The way they've been playing, though, might tell me they're going to at least keep it close in every game.
It's up to Jamaica to decide if they want Mexico to finish 4th or if they want Mexico to finish 3rd or 2nd, bro. If Jamaica beats Mexico in that first game,
good Lord,
Mexico's getting 4th, man. Because I think Venezuela has the capabilities of beating Mexico. I think Ecuador can beat Mexico as well. Jamaica is the one that I'm questionable about.
Same.
I've always been questionable about them. But they have the talent. They've been playing really well. I like the performance they put up against the USA and what they did against Panama as well. I think it's really, really positive. So I'm with you. But ultimately, I think they're just going to continue this pattern of disappointing in major tournaments. I think the home advantage for Mexico will give them better placement in this group. And I think Venezuela and Ecuador are both better teams overall than Jamaica. So I do have Jamaica in last place, especially if they start the tournament off with a loss to Mexico. It's going to be tough to bounce back from that.
Yeah, that would be so tough. Yeah, you're right. That opener is actually huge for both Jamaica and Mexico. It does suck too that there's no Damari Gray due to an injury. That's a big miss. And then no Leon Bailey. That is a massive miss because he had such a good season with Aston Villa. But it's no surprise considering that he's been very outspoken against the Jamaican FA. Which is just depressing. It's disappointing. I understand it. It just sucks though, because I mean, Jamaica, the Copa America in the USA, like, come on. The stage doesn't get bigger for a Caribbean nation like Jamaica, and Bailey could have been a part of that, but he ultimately rejected it. And that's very, very disappointing. Other players like Brentford's Ethan Pinnock, I'm not sure if he's injured, but he played in Brentford's last game. Weird that he's not here. But that's just how it is. There still is Michael Antonio, Bobby De Cordova-Reid. Both of these guys have been very committed since Hallgrimsson came as coach. That's really positive. And then they still have players like Shamar Nicholson has been pretty good in Jamaica jersey, been playing in France this last year as well. So there is talent in Jamaica, and more importantly, there's finally organization. So they might be able to do something here. I still have them in 4th, though.
I think like I mentioned, there's a pattern of CONCACAF teams not named the USA just disappointing, bro.
Damn, yeah, you're right, because we have both CONCACAF teams.
Both CONCACAF teams not making it out.
Not making it out here, and we ultimately had Canada not making it out too. Damn, that's half so far.
Half so far, and Conmebol topping this group with Ecuador and Venezuela. Let's talk about Venezuela. Venezuela, coached by Fernando Batista, ranked number 54 in FIFA's rankings. This is crazy. Venezuela did not win a match in 12 consecutive participations in the Copa America from 1975 to 2004. They have never been in the top 3 and are the only CONMEBOL member to be outside of the top 10 of Copa America's all-time table, because regular invitee Mexico surpassed them actually with performances in the Copa America.
No way.
What I'm getting at is Venezuela is a notoriously bad Copa America participant.
Wow.
History-wise.
Right.
The history is meant to be changed.
Well, it makes sense.
Or repeated.
They've also never been to a World Cup either. Right? They've historically been the lowest side in South America.
So what I'm predicting here is an incredible moment for Venezuela, which is getting out of this group. because right now they're in 4th place in World Cup qualification in CONMEBOL with 2 wins, 3 draws, and only 1 loss, which is really notable. It's early, but it's really notable. They drew against Brazil 1-1, and they defeated Chile, who we spoke highly about just a few minutes ago, 3-0, bro. 3-0 with Pachuca's finest, Salomón Rondón on this team, Córdoba, Sosa, Yangel Herrera. There was a trend of, I remember in the build-up to the 2022 FIFA World Cup, where if you had a Napoli badge next to your name, that meant that you were in good form. Doesn't matter what player you were. If you had that badge next to your name, you're in good form. I think the same goes for players who play for Girona. If you had the Girona badge next to your name, you're in great form. Everything's working for you. And I would say the same for Bayer Leverkusen players too. This man, Yangel Herrera, guided that midfield to an incredible Champions League position this year in La Liga. You have guys like Darwin Machis, Jordan Osorio, Jefferson Savarino, John Aramburo. There's talent on this Venezuelan team. They have a golden opportunity in the group of life. The only question I have is, are they good enough to beat Mexico at home? That's it.
I'm very curious to see Venezuela play in this tournament, and I don't think I've ever said that, honestly. They surprised in 2011. They went to the semifinal under their, legend Juan Arango, but that was the only and the last time that I've seen Venezuela high in footballing terms. And now I might be a little high on this team because of these recent performances. It's not just the results either. It really is how they're playing. Venezuela looks like they're enjoying football out there. Everybody looks very happy, very committed to the team. And honestly, football is such a mental game. That's like the biggest hurdle. If you're having fun, then you can actually achieve a lot. And Venezuela and all of their 6 World Cup qualifying games look like they're having fun out there. And then you add in the quality of players like Darwin Machis, Yangel Herrera, Jose Martinez, Christian Cáceres, by the way, could be 2 really good defensive midfielders that really shine in this tournament. We're very excited to see them. And then up top, you have players, some version of Jefferson Savarino, maybe you see Soltero, and then, of course, Salomón Rondón, who has the most IQ out of any striker in this tournament.
Football's Dumbledore.
yeah, exactly. So Venezuela have a lot going for them, not just on paper, but on the pitch too. So the question is, does Venezuela have enough to beat Mexico? The answer is definitively yes. This team is better than Mexico going to this tournament. The question is the home aspect, right? Yep. Are Venezuela going to be ready for a big tournament like this? Obviously, they're used to, South American qualifiers. This is a Copa America, and it's basically in Mexican soil here in the States. So I do think that will play a factor, especially if Mexico get a good win against Jamaica. I think Venezuela will find it to be a very, very tough match, and it will be tight no matter what. Venezuela aren't, world beaters here, but I do think if you just had to pit them paper versus paper, Venezuela actually have the better team right now.
Yeah, Venezuela has a chance here, man. They have a chance here. They'll be facing Mexico in their 2nd match in this tournament, so it'll come off of that Jamaica-Mexico match. Venezuela plays Ecuador first. I mean, just the context. Venezuela loses to Ecuador. Mexico beats Jamaica. Going into the 2nd game, it could be much, much more different. So what I have written down here is I have Venezuela and Mexico being interchangeable. I have them being interchangeable.
Me too.
Like the home aspect, the mentality aspect. I could see it being a really tight 0-0 game. Maybe it ends up being a 0-0 result, honestly. But I could see this game just going either way and either team qualifying through. But there is that opportunity for Venezuela in this group because I just see Jamaica as a far weaker side in terms of the way they play together as a team, and Mexico as very, very vulnerable. So to my Venezuelans, I'm curious to hear, what do you think about your team right now? Do you think you guys have the abilities to make it out of this group and to ultimately get a result against Mexico at home? I want to know what you guys think. And the final team in this group is the team that we both have topping this group. Yes?
Oh, yeah, yes? Please. Yeah,
Ecuador, coached by Felix Sanchez, ranked number 31. Ecuador are one of only 2 CONMEBOL members who have never won a continental title. The other one is in this group, Venezuela as well.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Both teams have never even placed in the top 3, which is also very interesting. 5th in World Cup qualification in CONMEBOL with 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Notable results include losing to Argentina 1-0, defeating Uruguay, and tying Colombia. So it's a good level that they're at right now.
Great level.
Guys like Grueso, I've told you before, the best names in football exist within this Ecuadorian team, bro. Grueso, Moises Caicedo, Johan Julio, Hincapié, Estupiñán, Pacho, Felix Torres, Preciado, Sarmiento, Gonzalo Plata, and then Valencia. And then the golden boy, probably the the most exciting youngster to watch in this tournament, Kendry Paez, who is starting for this team at, I believe, 16 years old, bro. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The South American Lamine Yamal, if you will.
Yeah, pretty much.
They can make it tough against anyone, bro. They can make it tough against anyone. Just going off of the results, they don't get blown out. They don't get blown out at all. Like, they keep all results really, really tight. My question for Ecuador, because I do see them topping this group, is can they upset a Brazil and Argentina? Can they upset an elite team in this tournament? That's my question, because they got to get over that hump, bro. They got to get over that, which they've never been truly able to do in Copa America. And they have a really good chance now with topping this group, getting a very favorable quarterfinal matchup against second place in Group A, which will be either Chile, Peru, or Canada. Getting the result there, playing against Argentina semifinal, and getting a result there to go to the final. That's their path. They can do it. Yeah. I'm just curious to see if they actually do.
Oh, man, I am so curious about this Ecuador side. Curious, excited. They were one of my favorite teams actually at the World Cup, just from a watching perspective, like just to see how they play. They were so dynamic. They have such fun players to watch out for. And the thing is, I think the Ecuador FA also realized that. They saw the good performances that they had at the World Cup and the good qualification cycle that they had. And I think they're doubled down. They are doubling down on this talent because they appointed a really good coach, Felix Sanchez. And we've seen how good of a tactician he was at Qatar, bringing the absolute best out of, let's just say, a mediocre team. Imagine what he can do with Ecuador. I think he's already gotten off to a brilliant start in World Cup qualifying. And when you look at the talent, it's raw, but there's also some really good established European level talent mixed in with this squad. You add in the tactics of Sanchez. I think Ecuador are setting their goal to beat Argentina in the semis. I think that has to be their goal.
That has to be the goal. Yeah. That has to be the goal.
And they can punch that high. That's what's so exciting about this Ecuadorian team.
Yeah. It seems though that Ecuadorians are kind of hesitant to kind of convince themselves of like being optimistic about this team. Like they're hesitant to commit to the idea that, we could actually win it this year, because from what I'm seeing online, I saw a comment, bro, that I had to copy on here.
Oh, okay.
This dude just on a YouTube comment said, outside of a few, Ecuador is a team plagued by tantrums, infighting, corruption, and a lack of work ethic, but tremendously talented. I know because my father was one of them. Wasted talent, but hopefully things will change. Brought his father into this, man. But he said there's a lot of infighting, a lot of corruption, a lot of lack of work ethic. And I'm seeing that like across a lot of like forums regarding Ecuador's national team. There's a lot of shit going on within them that I think is really interesting, because talent-wise, this team should be far beyond that. Like they should be above that level of incompetence. But it seems like there's still something kind of weary happening at the foundation of this team. I'd like to know more from Ecuadorians. If you could comment down below and let me know what is actually happening with the Ecuadorian national team. Is there that much fighting within the team, or is this just like someone who's very pessimistic about them?
Well, it's actually an incredible point, because if you think about it, Ecuador qualified for the World Cup in 2014, and they actually got better players after that World Cup, and they dramatically failed due to what you just said by not qualifying in 2018. They were so hot and cold as far as their performances were concerned, and I think it was down to a bit of corruption, a bit of player attitude, because the personnel that they had was good enough to go to the 2018 World Cup, and they just weren't even close. It was a disaster for Ecuador. But the reason why I think this is actually a turning point in the Ecuadorian timeline is because of the consistency that they've maintained with this core of players. I think this specific group of players, because for the most part, this is pretty much the same team that played at the World Cup. These players, I think, are different. I really do. And I think we've seen it. I mean, if you have a guy like Piero Hincapié, there's no way he can fuck around with corruption or a poor attitude if he's playing with Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah. And you could say that also about the rest of the back line. Félix Torres is a fantastic center back. We saw what he did with Santos Laguna. William Pacho, playing in Europe for a couple years now, had another good season, this time in the Bundesliga. There's some genuine, serious talent. Estupiñán as well, who unfortunately is injured and won't be playing. And that's going to be a big miss, actually. But then you still have Angelo Preciado playing in Europe as well. And then, of course, I mean, Moises Caicedo, right? He was the golden boy. He's still so young, and he was a big impact player for Chelsea this season. So there's so much genuine talent that Ecuador have now. And the reason why I think it's different is because they've maintained a high level of performance since these core group of players started playing with each other. That has never happened for Ecuador. And that's why this tournament is a big moment for this team, because if they go to the semifinals, then they prove to themselves and these people that are concerned, they prove to them that, hey, we are different. We are here for the long run, and we're here to compete and go deep in major tournaments like the Copa America and the World Cup in 2 years' time. Ecuador have the opportunity right now to tell their people exactly that.
Losing to Argentina in the semifinals, the world champions, in a tight match, that's...
Come on.
Yeah, I'd be completely happy with that, completely. I want to see this Ecuadorian team catch fire. That's what I want. I want to see them catch fire, top this group. There's a golden opportunity here. And the last point I want to mention is just, what is the impact of Kendry Páez? 16 years old. We haven't really gotten the chance to see him on a big level because he's been playing at Independiente del Valle, and that just doesn't get the same media coverage as like a guy like Lamine Yamal. And I compare them because they're both at the same age, I believe, playing very similar roles for their national team. And I do think he's going to get the minutes and the opportunity, but this is his moment. This is the biggest stage that he'll be on so far. I believe Chelsea's the one that's going to sign him.
They did get him.
Right? They got him.
They got him, yeah.
So this is his biggest moment, man. I want to see what he does. Does he
Same, dude.
Does he just pull off a stinker in his first game? Maybe gets benched going into the second, or does he does he have really good moments? Does he have like Wonder Boy moments? Does he just go off? Does he have really good like dribble penetrations? Does he take risks, and does he infuse this Ecuadorian offense with even more excitement? I would love to see that, man. And I think in this group, he'll have multiple chances with Mexico, Venezuela, and Jamaica's defense all waiting to be attacked. So I'm interested to see that factor and how it plays into it. But if it goes good for them, he could end up being a complete difference maker for this Ecuadorian side, because he wasn't there for him in 2022 World Cup. This could be a new factor.
Yeah. And another question that I do have for Ecuador, and it's actually one that we had a year and a half ago at the World Cup, is who are their real finishers? Because they just don't have any. They truly. And Valencia is a veteran at this point, and as he's gotten older, he has also gotten more wasteful. And you no longer have the Ibarra brothers from the wing position. Estupiñán being injured is a massive miss because he was essentially a secondary winger when he would join. So now a lot of the load is going to be on these new guys, these new wingers that Sanchez has called up. Kevin Rodriguez is also another striker that has started to come into the fray for Ecuador. I believe he plays in Europe, in Belgium or something like that. He's looked good when he plays for Ecuador, but he also doesn't look clinical. So I think Ecuador still have a problem of their offensive line just is not clinical, but their chance creation, their dribble penetration, their dynamic ability in the midfield is all top tier. So they have so many good things, but I just do wonder if the lack of finishing is going to ultimately hurt them. And in a game against Argentina, they're going to need guys to finish.
For Group B, we have Mexico first, Ecuador second, Jamaica third, Venezuela fourth. Nah, man, I try to convince myself. Now for Group B, we have Ecuador in first, Venezuela second, Mexico third, Jamaica in fourth.
That's how I have it.
Let me know.